When a YouTuber creates a video covering a weapon with well-explained points and examples, it's pretty common that that video will create and solidify a common consensus among the community about how strong, broken, weak the weapon is. And I think this locks players into a pattern of thought regarding a weapon, when in reality, unlocks are meant to be used situationally. And the idea of this is the best because it is the best in most situations is limiting your ability to play adaptively, game to game, and life to life. And this line of thinking couldn't apply more than to the Scorch Shot, as I think it is overrated. In fact, the best flare gun is actually the manmelter. No, it isn't. It's the flare gun. The default flare gun. Okay, the video's over. The Scorch Shot, I feel, has this large stigma around it due to its ease of use, the annoying knockback, and the damage potential it brings. As others have pointed out, this flare gun has the potential to do the most damage with a single shot. This is due to the bouncing flare it produces when it hits a player directly, which then explodes and reapplies afterburn. But I think it's important to keep in mind that this damage is afterburn. Think about it, in a vacuum where players are standing perfectly still and letting the bouncing flare hit them and reapply afterburn and make no attempts to pick up health. Yes, the Scorch Shot will do the most damage. But in most situations, players are going to do two things. Depending on their health, they're either running away to find a health pack or a friendly pyro, in which case the knockback can potentially save them, helping them escape quicker. Or if they're confident they can outburst their flamethrower damage, they are rushing you instead. And as a pyro, with a Scorch Shot, other than your air blast or extinguisher, if the opponent can land their hits, you're out of luck. I think the situations where the Scorch Shot shines are in defending against the cart or choke point heavy area, but even then, I think the Detonator could offer some unique benefits over it. In a large open map with enemies moving everywhere, you basically have to land direct hits or the ground the enemies are standing on. Otherwise, you're basically a sniper who doesn't do anything. But with the Detonator, you're able to detonate flares mid-air, so even if you don't land a direct hit or the ground beneath them, you're still able to hit them. The mid-air detonations are also able to hit enemies around walls, so you find yourself on a map with a lot of corners. This can become a great tool for peeking corners. And this is on top of the better mobility the Detonator provides, as the Scorch Shot has a self-damage penalty, and the Detonator can explode closer to your collision box. I will say, where the Scorch Shot has a leg up, is in order to detonate the flare midair, you have to keep the Detonator out, which can be troublesome if you need to air blast some projectiles away. So it's best paired with the degreaser, and with the added mobility, you're able to play combo pyro pretty effectively. So yeah, when it comes to AoE flare guns, I think the Detonator should be viewed as a more viable alternative option. Anyways, have you ever had a hard time transitioning to the next
Baba Booey?
In this day and age of Detonator jumping and Scorch Shot spamming, I think the flare gun is underappreciated and has some really good potential. First off, it provides Pyro a damage option that is effective at any range. The flare gun, at base, does 30 damage, but unlike the other options, it's able to fully crit burning players. That means, with a successful hit on a burning player, paired with a potential 60 damage afterburn, light classes are dying within 4.5 seconds, assuming they were full health from the start. Now from long to medium ranges, this does require you to land 2 consecutive hits. Or, if they're already ignited from a friendly pyro, using a crazy item called a Scorch Shot, you only have to land 1. And let me tell you, there's no greater satisfaction than out-sniping a sniper with a projectile. Unless the sniper is wearing this. Valve! What? Or getting a retreating enemy from across the map. And if that was it, I'd say in a vacuum, the flare would be mediocre, but we don't live in a vacuum. In close and medium range encounters, if the enemies just get a sniff of your source code spaghetti flame particles, you're able to crit. Now admittedly, it's kinda hard to hit enemies who are moving unpredictably, but with the air blast, you're able to launch opponents into a predictable area and combo with a flare, even enemy pyros and Darwin shield snipers. You see, even though the Pyro and Darwin shield have afterburn immunity, they're still technically on fire while being hit with a flame particle. So if you have the degreaser, or flamethrower, but it's a very tight window, you can lead your flames in such a way that you can swap to your flare gun and crit an afterburn immune target. Now, could you just use your shotgun? Yeah, probably. But the shotgun is limited in this range, and you have to reload it, while the flare gun self-reloads while you swap to your flamethrower. So as long as you're not in some insane long drawn-out fight.
Okay, get out of here, Heavy. Get out of here. Okay, there's a Demo Knight. He just cavered me. Get out of here. There's the soldiers. There's the rocket jump there. Okay. Alright, there's another Demo Knight. Okay, there's a billion people. Where are all these people coming from? I'm covered in piss. What's happening right now? What? Why? No! Yeah!
And unlike the other options, the flare gun is burst damage. It's overall less damage than the potential damage of the Scorch Shot, but in a lot of scenarios, the burst damage from the flare gun can actually be the difference between you living and the enemy surviving. Here, a heavy is revved up and now has random crits, but some flame particle and a flare takes him out before I'm killed. Here I catch out a Detonator. He's retreating in a straight line towards the health pack, so I finish him off with a flare. Here a Detonator is being pocketed, but the flare gun is able to burst through the healing. Now, some advice. I'm not an expert on Pyro or Source Spaghetti, but if you want to consistently knock enemies up in the air instead of away from you, it's best to air blast downward. The air blast has a pretty wide hitbox. You can even hit rockets behind you, and this is a much more consistent way than aiming upwards. As mentioned earlier, the flare gun reloads itself. So if you're fighting a projectile class or you're needed on spy checking, it's best to swap to your flamethrower in between shots. And the flare gun has a set fire rate regardless of your weapon change, so you can't increase your fire rate with a degreaser. Overall, the flare gun can be difficult to use, but I think out of Pyro secondaries, it's one of the most skill-expressive options available. You're more likely to get compliments from the enemy team for landing flare crits than the Scorch Shot. And while not my main point, while there are less players in 66 or Highlander, these are where the most mechanically insane players are. And the flare gun and shotgun are used the most for their consistency and burst damage. So I hope I inspired you to swap off the Scorch Shot when the situation calls, and to try out the flare gun instead. But more importantly, to experiment. Everything in TF2 is situational. The weapons you pick will change from map to map, the classes you pick game to game, and your playstyle from player to player. I think you're doing yourself a disservice and making Pyro a very linear class if you just stick to the Scorch Shot as your default secondary, because nothing is more satisfying and skill expressive than landing a flare crit on that sniper from across the map. Anyways, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe!
Easy.
Yeah. Didn't even need
Aussie for me. I already
Oh,
got
and
a bomb launcher.
Yo.
Oh my
Aussie.
lord, Laser.
It's Aussie.
Wait,
It's
what?
Aussie. It's Aussie.
Congratulations, my friend.
Wait.
What?